All right, look, we're jumping back in it. We have some pretty interesting news on the day. We had Apple's earnings, and let me start by saying this. Apple's earnings weren't the most impressive. They weren't the most extraordinary, but they did something that, was kind of absolutely bonkers. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the overall direction on the SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. We talked very in-depth in yesterday's video about Powell and the overall expectations and what was said from the Fed, from the FOMC meeting. And I do believe that's set up for a very interesting next 1 to 2 months. We'll talk about that as well. Before we get into that, though, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing every single day here on the channel. I make videos for you. Now, you may look at the thumbnails and say, Tyler, that's a little clickbaity. And I would say yes, because this is YouTube. However, inside the videos, I give you the unbiased viewpoint of fundamentals and technicals, and I tell you exactly what I think is going to happen based on my opinion and going into the market. And then, of course, I give you what happened yesterday. I try to tell you and show you mistakes that we may have had or things that we were maybe right on and go based on that. The goal is to get 1% better every single day in this market. I will also say, if you're interested in short form content, the Instagram, the link is down below. Check it out. This is where we post every single day some short form content. If that's what you're looking for, some tips and tricks, some more educational stuff there. The links are down below. Let's get into this. Now, we're going to start today with some of the bad news. So today we again, I'm going to highlight a chart for you in a second. And actually, we're going to go to that first. We're going to roll over to Twitter. This is my Twitter. The link is down below if you want to see, some stuff throughout the day. So this was the Nasdaq today. And somewhat of yesterday. On the left, one far on that way, right? You have PACW, and at the end of yesterday's close, we were getting a little bit of a bounce. And then what happened? PACW said they are initiating or interested in selling. What happened after that? You can see we trended back to the upside, basically after markets closed, about, in the after hours from when Asia market opened until pretty much, overnight. And then we kind of came back down a little bit. But what was the bad news here? A rumor started getting spread that WAL, Western Alliance Bank, who also did the dividend very recently and has expressed the strength of their company, was also looking for a sell. Now, PACW, they did come out and say that they're looking at doing this. Now, what did they say about this, though? They did not say that, and I want to be very transparent and clear about this. They did not say that there's underlying issues with the bank. They said that they were looking out for what's best for their shareholders. We'll go back to that in a second. Western Alliance took a total different approach. They said there is zero truth to this, and they actually came out and said that they are looking to take legal action against the reports that were filed against this, because it ended up making the stock drop like 70. It was like a crazy amount off rip in the beginning. If you go back, I think at the end of the day, they ended at around like 18 flat. They are popping back up to 19, but they were down really bad earlier. They were almost at like $10-11. So it was brutal. It was brutal, but they're bouncing back right now a little bit to the upside. Now, PACW, let me give you a viewpoint on why they're doing this, and I'll tell you my opinion on it. Now, PACW on potentially doing this sell. I think that right now, even if we look to pause and we look at bonds in general, like looking at something like, the US, 10 or the 2-year, right? We've been talking about 2-year yields and things along those lines, right? We've been talking heavily about these on the daily and how they look like they want to continue to drop. Yields probably drop, right? And the reason this would be beneficial for these banks is because they have a lot of big bets on further out yields and them just making bad bets. Now, PACW, they look okay now based on the earnings we saw. They did not lie on those earnings. The earnings from FRC, the reason you knew that they were going to go under. PACW had cash on hand, deposits were healthy, etc. But if bank issues persist, okay, if they continue to show up, okay, PACW, I think they're attacking this from the viewpoint of how much longer can we survive this, right? And so their viewpoint and what they said was, maybe this is the best move for shareholders is selling, getting out while it's safe and not taking risk. Where Western Alliance is taking the total opposite of our approach, saying we'll survive, we'll be fine. That's kind of where these are at right now. Okay. So I'm not going to say PACW, and people were saying, oh, PACW is going under. There was no news about them going under. That they were interested, and this is my opinion. Okay, there's no factual based on this because PACW did not release any information about why they wanted to sell, except that it was the best. They're looking at the best possibilities for investors and shareholders. That was their statement. Take that as you will. Okay, take it as you will. Now, we look at the Nasdaq and how has it moved. Now, this is the daily chart. Now, I took all drawings, I took everything off this because I want you to look at this chart. Okay. If we look at this chart from an unbiased standpoint, now you know this is the Nasdaq, so of course, if you're a bear, then you're going to be like, well, Tyler, I've had shorts for days here, and I've done my technical analysis, and I've read the reports. You know, inflation's not going anywhere. I went to the grocery store, and usually my bill's $90, and it was $93. Okay, Tyler, I'm a full-time Twitter expert, okay? I've done all my research. And let me tell you, this is all fugazi. Now, okay, whatever. Because believe it or not, if you read the comments down below, we have quite a few of those people. But luckily for you, I'm not one of them. I'm going to shoot it to you straight. Call me Shooter McGavin, right? If we look here, going into October, we have continued to make higher lows continually, over and over and over. And this is how structurally you're moving. Now, the biggest levels on the board for me, let's go over them really quick, okay? The biggest levels, and we're going to just get rid of some of these lower levels down here for you, okay? At the end of the day, it's 12.95, your February highs, and you just continue to hold this right here. Now, before we really dive into where we're at on the Nasdaq, and I think it's important that we get a good grasp of overall what's happening with technicals and the Nasdaq and the ES and Dow, is what has led this rally. Because this rally has been the strongest rally in over a year. It has been, whether you like it or not, want to admit it or not, your most consistent and your best rally. What has led this since January 5th, early January? It's been the Nasdaq. In comparison to other rallies or other bounces that we've had, they've been led by ES and by Dow. For instance, we go into ES, we look at what happened back here, a much stronger, higher, more volatile rally by ES. Going into Dow, you can even see Dow has remained relatively near those local highs. I mean, when you push back last June into August, I mean, you got just right up to these levels. It's just the reality of what happened here. It was very strong, very, very strong, and you're kind of just back there. So Dow has been relaxing at higher levels for a longer amount of time than something like the Nasdaq or even the ES. Okay, so again, we go back to ES and we look at what's happened here. You've been relaxing as well, holding up near higher levels. If we look at basically from January, though, the move has been less impressive. You push up, you come down, you push back up. We look at Nasdaq, again, you're going to see that this has maintained the most strength. Again, right? Not manipulating charts. This just is what it is. Now, why is it important that Nasdaq leads for us? Why do we continue to focus on this? It's important because tech is the overall area of growth in the market, a risk on mentality, if you will. Now, a lot of names are still low. Okay, we look at like Amazon, we look at Google, we can go down the list of somewhat Meta, still kind of low. You know, I could go on a list. I don't want to go on a crazy list, but I could go on a list. A lot of these tech names are still low. AMD being one of them had a monster day today. A few names are high. NVIDIA is kind of high. Microsoft's getting up there. Apple is one of them, right? Those are some of the big and best performers of the year so far. But what it's telling us is that right now, you still look good. There's still no reason to get overly bearish, in my opinion. Why? Because you continue to make higher lows and you continue to hold the trend. I'm going to tell you the same thing as I told you the day before, the week before, and the week before that. What is it? You are bullish as long as you remain and hold above February highs. Understand that. Get it? Push it in your brain and listen up. Because as long as you hold above that level, you will remain bullish. Bulls will have control, in my opinion. And for those of you saying, well, Tyler, you're range trading, whatever. I don't care. If we consolidate at this level, so be it. Eventually, we'll break out of it. But as long as buyers continue to show up with aggression, with with some effort like they have been here, you continue to look strong. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper. We look at what's kind of happened with some of these earnings today, okay? So we look at Apple, obviously the biggest one on the day, but we did have a beat on Coinbase, we had a beat on Square, and again, what's the going theme? Tech continues to beat. This was the concern going into today. I was like, I don't really like Apple. I don't really think they should beat, but when we look at it in general, tech across the board has been a clean sweep, right? It's just brutal. It's like when Golden State beat the Cavs in LeBron's last year in Cleveland. It was gross. It was nasty. It was really like Golden State a year ago when they beat beat the Lakers. Disgusting, right? So when we look at what's happening here and we look at this action, again, EPS, slight beat. Revenue, slight beat. Year over year sales, they are down. I already know everyone in the comments like, Tyler, look, I've been reading my journal and I took the notes. Apple's down. Apple year over year is down. Well, let me tell you something, Jimmy. When we look at what's happening in this market, you're in the midst of a recession. The goal is to continue to show signs of life, continue to show signs of getting through this right now. Now, obviously, rates start to drop and we continue to see pain like this, it'd be pretty bad news. Even looking at a Mac revenue, even though Mac overall, that 40% drop in shipments and sales going on there, Mac revenue. Estimations slightly down as anticipated, but still did halfway decent. What do we talk about though? China, big beat, Greater China revenue. China revenue is going to continue to go up. You need to understand that. China is reopening, and whether you like to admit it or not, Apple is a big company when it comes to China. You could almost call them a Chinese stock. And then of course, at the end of this, authorizes increase of up to 90 billion buyback in shares, and they boost their dividend by a cent. Now, there's two things here that we need to know. Apple continues to flex by saying we have more cash than anyone, and they're boosting their dividend. Number two, the buyback. Now, the buyback, let me tell you this right now. Does this mean that they're buying back 90 billion of shares here at highs up here? So everyone understands this? No, that is not what it means. Okay, now they can start buying back up to that. So if they dip, they can buy whatever. So you have to understand that as well. And they'll give you updates along the way about where we're going and how we're moving with those buybacks. So also understand that. But this still is setting the tone and the continuous beat here. Again, Apple pushing back into 169. It doesn't look bad. Now, following up though, in Q, you're kind of liking this. You're kind of ideal. Okay. Another sign of buyers showing up when they have to. We have to understand that as well. ES. What have I said though? Under 4,100, you don't look great. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you get back above 4,100, it's time to step up to the plate, boys, because we got to start swinging for the fences once again to the top of that range. We got to start swinging. Okay. So again, you get above 4,100 on ES, you start mounting back above this. Your target is back to the top of the range, 4,200, 4,175 roughly. Again, the trade that keeps on giving, if you will. We've gone over this time and time again. Today, the catalyst for the downside was bad bank news. But guess what? Half of that bank news got disproved. And there was no real bad news regarding these banks as far as outlooks or continuous unhealthy movement. It's funny, people were saying, well, Powell said the banks were resilient and they're starting to say they want to sell now. Again, we can see that one of them was fake news. And the other one, they just decided they wanted to sell because maybe it's the easiest way moving forward. They don't want to deal with their problems, which again, I don't really think is a healthy thing to do, to allow them to just sell their company just because they make bad bets and then they have to deal with the repercussions. I don't think that's how stocks should work. I don't think that's how business should work. And I don't think the Fed or FDIC should allow that. Personal opinion, do with that as you will. Now going into the market, stocks I'm liking, best setups. Number one, numero uno, say it with me, numero uno. Loving Tesla. Now off rip Tesla, I'm gonna tell you right here, it's a little bit ugly, so bear with me, but you're getting a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders. We'll actually go over here so you can see a little bit better. I like drawing on here better. You can go to something like the 2 hour. It's a little bit ugly, bear with me. But again, If you can start getting continuation holding back above 164, really 166 is what you want to see. You mount 166, I believe you start to fill that gap to the upside. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't shoot the messenger. Absolutely love them. Another big name today, AMD. If you did not see, they had a partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft is going to start funding their ventures into AI. If you did not know, big plot twist there as well. It's funny. I love them going into their earnings. Everyone remembers this. Everyone's like, Tyler, we hate you. Now, I get it, a day late and $1 short. Literally the day after the earnings, they announced this. You shoot up from $80 all the way up to $91. Any options you may have had went absolutely parabolic, so congratulations. I think if you get back above 89, 88 roughly here, you'll start to push back up here on semiconductors in general. I still really like NVIDIA. If NVIDIA can continue to hold the 175 region, I think you have signs of life as well. So semiconductors in general, I still think have room. Again, NVIDIA is extremely high, so you have to understand that. But again, the sector is just very hot and shows a lot of signs of continuation. Probably the best name in this sector is AVGO, just because of the way it's been moving. If you get back above 616, you have room all the way back up to 625, and then roughly back up to 636. It's just been a great name in the sector as well. Anytime it gets above 616, it's been a great opportunity. So definitely watch it there as well. Now, also going in, a few other names that I have been watching. You have been trying to hold this level here on Netflix as well. Down here, you can actually see where you were kind of getting that breakout to the upside previously. It will actually go lower down to like 312 roughly, but I'm just giving you a visual so you can see it right about there. So you're holding this level and you can actually see the kind of trend line that you are sitting in right there to the downside. Again, really quick drawing it out there. If you can start holding this and breaking up and getting continuation, you're looking for another touch of 331. So far on the 331, you have been rejected multiple times. It's a massive key level, but you can see that this has been a very clear and easy target. We've traded this multiple times as well. So if you can get any type of push and hold of 321 into tomorrow, I think you're looking for a shot into 331 pretty much in a hurry, with some volatility as well. Big fan there. Going into Meta, I did like Meta quite a bit. Anytime it's above 337, I'm a big fan. But if you cannot hold that, then it's an obvious short position and it's just not ideal. But again, with the way that we're moving, I'm not a huge fan of this unless you can get back above 237. So I want to give an update there. Microsoft. This is another really big, interesting name, especially with what they're doing with AMD. If you go to about the 1-day chart, what we're going to do really quick is bring up the 9 EMA here on the daily. Actually go to the 4 hour so you can see. I'm giving you a quick visual. Microsoft, obviously you went just straight up there. And as you can always see here, you can see that you're kind of getting a little bit of a flag as well here on the 4 hour time frame. But giving you an even better visual as you zoom out to the 1-day chart. What do you have over here? Again, as you zoom back in, you can see here on the daily, just giving you a quick visual. There is a daily gap at around 309.8, 309.7. So that would be my big level to be watching. If you start to get any type of breakout here on Microsoft, definitely be watching it. And the key level to be watching before, if you're trying to get into any of these types of trades, is going to be around the 305.2, 305 range in general. So if you can hold this range about right there, this has kind of been your line in the sand. You can see all of the tests of this level you have had. Anytime you've held this, you've continued to get rallies and bounces back to the upside. You've seen false breakdowns, remount, and then pushing back up to 308. So again, 305.2. Very big line in the sand. That's going to be the ultimate level you're watching here as well. I don't want to spend too much time going over, stocks and things along those lines. I think I cover the basis of things I want to cover. If you're looking to have a hedge, I think VIX is the best hedge that you're going to get right now. VIX, you did push out of the $17 region. You push back into 20. And if you're going to get downside, VIX will have a spike, in my opinion. So VIX is very interesting. It's one of the best hedges you're going to have right now, especially with all the volume flowing into these contracts as well. But ultimately, that's what I'm watching. Again, the biggest sign for tomorrow you're looking for is, can we get back above 4,100 on ES? If that happens, you are, in my opinion, got to slap calls like I'm talking like your woman's ass, okay? Slap it for dear life. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, traders.